Nigeria, the largest country in Africa by population and landmass, plays a vital role on the continent. Its governance under a presidential system hinges on policies that address the needs of its diverse populace. Recently, the proposed tax reform bill by President Bola Tinubu'S administration has sparked nationwide debate, particularly in northern states like Kano. This documentary examines the potential impact of the bill, with a spotlight on Governor ABBA YUSUF'S development strides in Kano State and reaction from citizens, economists, and business leaders. A hub of commerce, that's what Kano State is, and it's a hub of development. It's the commercial and population hub in northern Nigeria. It has been a beacon of progress under Governor ABBA YUSUF'S. Since assuming office, the governor has prioritized education and infrastructure, declaring a state of emergency in the educational sector. Collaborating with organizations like United Kingdom's AID and the Arewa Consultative Forum, he hosted an education recovery conference to address the state's 1 million out-of-school children. These efforts have strengthened Kano's educational framework. Turning to infrastructure development has also been a key focus, with significant projects such as road construction, market development, and bridge building. These initiatives have enhanced the quality of life for Kano's residents and bolstered the state's economic potential. Kano State residents and stakeholders commend Governor Kabiru's transformative leadership as they speak on his developmental strides. The Igbo King of Kano commends Governor's focus on development. His Royal Majesty Igwe Dr. J.P. Ikechukwu Oliver Akbudo, Eze Diorama, Eze Orazurunye V, and Eze Ndibo of Kano State have praised the state governor for prioritizing education and infrastructural development. Speaking as a leader of the Igbo community in Kano, he acknowledged the governor's efforts in driving progress across key sectors. However, he emphasized the need for more attention to the unique challenges faced by the residents of Sabongoli, a major Igbo settlement in the state. The monarch specifically highlighted the lack of pipe-borne water and the deteriorating condition of motor parks in Sabongoli. He urged the governor to address these pressing concerns and acknowledged their critical impact on the welfare of the residents.
For us, we are not different, and we are not stranger. We are indigenous of Kano. As far as you live here, born here, your children schooling this Kano. We are indigenous. We are not a stranger in Kano. If you can see, our people are developing everywhere, building houses everywhere. Even in this Sabongeri, is the highest place government are getting revenue, tax and other things. So all those things he promised us, we begging him to come and do it for us.
There's also concern about representation in Sabongari. His Royal Majesty Igwe Akbudo expressed dissatisfaction with the performance of the special advisor tasked with responsibility of representing the Igbo community in Sabongari. According to him, the official has misappropriated resources intended for the people, diverting the governor's goodwill gestures for personal gain. He called on the state government to investigate these allegations and ensure effective representation for the Igbo community. His Royal Majesty Igwe Akbudo's statements reflect a blend of appreciation for ongoing developmental strides and an earnest call for improved governance and welfare for his community and citizens nationwide. Mrs. Florence Okwesa, a businesswoman, praised the governor's achievements while calling for continued efforts to support women in business.
I'm so excited. My heart is full of joy. I know that he's going to do a great thing for us. Well, he has done a great thing here in Kano State. We are experiencing it already, and we have experienced it. My advice to women, they should come up and they should be strong on whatever they are doing in life, and they will achieve their aim.
Mr. Michael Asika, a Kano resident, expressed satisfaction with the governor's initiatives and encouraged sustained development.
A new governor. The governor is doing his best anyway. His inception to office, we have seen the things he's doing. We really believe that he's going to do better, since this is still at the early stage of his office. We want him to look at the environment quite well and see what is the needs of the people, especially strangers, not necessarily the individuals of the state, because all of us from the Kano State residents.
And now returning to the subject matter of the tax reform bill. In a bid to ensuring good governance to the people, President Tinubu proposed tax reform bills, which is now the subject of debate nationwide. The tax reform bill seeks to modernize Nigeria's fiscal framework, enhance revenue generation, and boost the tax to GDP ratio to 18% by 2026. Key components of that reform bill include incremental VAT increases from 7.5% to 10% by 2025, 12.5% between 2026 and 2029, and 15% by 2030. The exemptions for essential items like baby products, sanitary goods, and electricity. However, tying state allocations to internally generated revenue has sparked concerns about regional disparities. While the reforms aim to streamline tax collection and harmonize laws, critics argue that states with limited industrial activity, those in the north, may face revenue generation challenges, exacerbating inequalities. Here are some perspectives from Kano State stakeholders on the issue of revenue and the economy. Dr. Zaid Abubakar, chairman of Kano State Internal Revenue Services, highlighted the importance of Kano's internally generated revenue to Nigeria's economy. Its strong business community, anchored by markets and trading hubs, plays a vital role in national revenue.
Revenue in different forms here in Kano. As usual, when you take a tour across the subnationals in Nigeria, revenue generation is divided into two. We normally say we have the formal and the informal sectors where revenues are generated. For the formal sectors or formal sector of the economy, revenues are generated from incorporated entities. These are entities that have registered with the government and they are conducting their businesses in a formalized way. And at subnational levels, the main focus is on personal income taxes. So when you generate your revenues, especially on the formal sector of the economy, the target is on the individuals that are employed within those formal settings, and it is expected that these formal settings will remit the personal income taxes of their employees through a system that is called plea on monthly basis. The second category of collections or revenue generation is on the informal sector, and as we all know, the informal sector in Nigeria, according to anecdotal evidence, accounts for close to 70% of the Nigerian economy, and that is more through when you come up north here. We generate taxes from the players of this informal economy. We have self-employed individuals, traders, businessmen, that conduct their businesses using their own names or other forms of business trade names or nicknames that they use. So we also generate revenue from this set of individuals. So in total, you can say revenue generation is coming from two basic sectors of the economy, formal and informal. Seeing some improvements in revenue generation from barely 2 billion that the state has been generating to now close to 5 billion on monthly basis. We are not where we want to be. We expect the state to be generating more than 10 billion per month. That we expect to begin to happen by the first quarter of 2025. And this is the reason why we have to rejig the system, our processes, to ensure that everything is addressing the requirement of the digital era and 21st century of revenue administration, not only in Nigeria, but specifically in Kano, because we have our own peculiarities of how businesses are being conducted here. As I said initially, more than 50–60% of business activities here are basically informal. So we have to come up with strategies that will address the requirement of these informal settings. By the first quarter of 2025, we will begin to see mobile kiosks being deployed in all the markets here in Kano. And this will assist the taxpayers in having ease in making their tax payment and to ensure that we have seamless means of collections across all the states. Kano accounts for, I can say, maybe I stand to be corrected, more than 50% of business activities that happen in the north. So if we're able to address the business requirements when it comes to tax payment, I believe we'll be able to hit that target of a minimum 10 billion naira per month for the state. Communication unit is up and running, and they are actually reaching out to the taxpayers through the media, advocacy, road shows that they do carry out, I think, on monthly basis to educate and to engage with the taxpayers. The reality is that for us to be able to achieve that, we have to really engage with the taxpayers and to make them understand why tax payment is very important, and it is in the best interest of all of us to ensure that these taxes are paid as at when due. I can tell you that without taxation or revenue generation, most of the activities cannot be conducted smoothly and successfully within the state, because the revenue generation assists the state to complement what is being paid centrally from federal government. We are not at a situation where we can say we are comfortable until we are able to generate 80% of the state requirement from IGR, that is internally generated revenue. By the time we're able to achieve that, we can beat our chest and say Kano State can start on its feet without, waiting for FAC allocation coming from the state. That is the position where we aspire to be. But the reality is that revenue generation and tax collection here in Kano, complements to a very large extent what the state government is doing when it comes to financing the economy. My message to taxpayers, as usual, is for them to ensure they remit their taxes as at when due and let them cooperate with the state government. The government is there or here to work for them in the best interest of everybody, and we can only lift the state further if we're able to discharge our civic responsibility through payment of taxes. My message to the governor is to say thank you for all the support we've been receiving, and I want to use this opportunity to also seek for his own understanding and patience that we are not where we want to be sector here in Kano, but I promise that with all the foundation we are putting in place, the foundation is not only going to speak to the limited number of years we have in our hands, but it's a foundation that I believe will be able to lift Kano and make it the envy of most states here in Nigeria, not only in the north, in Nigeria generally, for a number of years to come and decades to come. That is the foundation we're putting in place.
Dr. Nazir Muhammad Haliru, DG and CEO of Kano State Investment Promotion Agency, emphasized the potential economic strain of increased taxation on production and purchasing power.
Across various sectors, and also come up with plans and strategies to retain the current investors in the state, and also promote or do promotional activities in order to attract capital inflow into the states, and also ensure that businesses for job creation, business improvement, and other key activities happens in the states in order to ensure that Kano remains the hub for commercial activities in sub-Saharan Africa and also generally northern part of the country. So we do work variously, like with various stakeholders at both national and international stage in order to promote investment portfolio in the states. Major states will suffer. Why I say this is because when you look at it from the perspective of where the central companies or where the VAT will be centrally allocated from the originating companies are mainly in the southern part of the country, and in that case the income or the benefit will be skewed to the southern part of the country than the northern part of the country. As you know, goods and services are produced and consumed nationwide. So in that case, and the northern part of the country, which has the chunk of the population, even though they're going to have 20% of the derivation, however, states will suffer, because if we say most of these goods where they are mainly produced, that's where the states will benefit from the tax. What about other states? And these are issues that governors may not really, or some of the governors in the northern part of the country may look at it from the negative perspective around not asking the citizens to really not consume those goods, and that affect generally investment for the country, and it will affect our FDIs. And when it comes to states, for us like Kano, for instance, where we can have those investors or producers that will come and produce and may not be consumed also by other states, thinking like the benefit will go to Kano alone. So this is going to generally affect us as a nation. So I felt like there's need to really have a thorough review again to look at what those perspectives are in terms of the shares to every state. States that have mostly SMEs that are supposed to benefit from this law but are not registered as cooperatives but business names. What would be the provision in the law for those cooperatives or for those companies or SMEs that are registered as business names? So these are areas that we need to really look at it. And generally also from the other positive perspective, states would benefit more because the fact or the derivation will increase, I think, from 50% to 55%, and then the other shares to local government and the other dimensions of how it's going to be shared from how to FRS and other bodies that generally. So my message with this will be aligned to the ongoing reforms by His Excellency Alhaji Abba Kabir Yusuf of Kano State. Kano State is of doing business reforms, the enabling environment currently with the infrastructures development, with the new innovations, as you can see, just to allow or to improve the business enabling environment in Kano, and also these of doing business. So my advice to business owners is to tap on these opportunities, by the state government initiatives, and to also ensure that, most of those business owners or business that have registered as business names to register them as cooperatives so that they can hugely benefit, from this policy, even though we're calling for the federal government to review it to ensure that there is an inclusion of, these business owners, which form part of the major contributors to our economy in Kano and northern part of the country. We also look into businesses in Kano that are taxable or that are vatable to consider paying VAT, because this is going to improve, our IGR is going to also improve the resources available to the state government to come up with laudable projects, infrastructural development, and other things that they can benefit as business owners. To companies also, we're looking into, because there's going to be also some benefit from the personal income tax reviews. So is to consider this as an opportunity, even though there are several calls for the federal government to review this, but this is an opportunity that they can come up with one voice as cooperatives or as society, to really get into their public hearings at the National Assembly. My message to the federal government, even though some extent is they're getting a reduction from the vertical distribution formula from 15% to 10% as the federal government, and 50%, 55% for the state, and 30 to 35% for the local governments. I think the federal government should really consider the inclusion of grievances by the northern part of the country, especially those that will be significantly affected, with their businesses. We need this to be reflected into the bill, and also to ensure that there's equity in terms of the income generation, in terms of the FAC allocation to every state, to ensure that this tax reform bill does not affect one region and also positively affect the other region. So it's really important to consider this before it's been passed.
Professor Magaji Barbe, Special Advisor on Revenue Matters, warned of the bill's broader societal implications, urging careful evaluation.
The tax reform bill, as we know, is a combination of about 4 bills sent to National Assembly by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. One of the bills seeks to harmonize various tax laws we have. Currently, we operate a myriad of laws on many things, on personal income tax, on petroleum profit tax, on several other things. So the bill tried to harmonize all of them, and the resultant expected benefit is that conflicts and duplications, issues of double taxation will be eliminated. That's one. The second one is on changing the name of Federal Revenue Service to National Revenue Service. And alongside that, there are added responsibilities to it. So it's expected that the Federal Revenue Service, when the bill is passed, will be called National Revenue Service, and it will be performing some duties on revenue collection that are presently being performed by other MDAs. Then there is another one on revenue administration. So that one is just to standardize processes of revenue assessment, collection, and the like. Then there is another one on establishment of Joint Tax Board, Tax Appeal Tribunal, and Office of the Ombudsman General. So this in brief are the contents of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu tax reform bill. However, from the inception of the bill, there seems to be a lot of problems associated with it, to the extent that presently, I think only the presidency is in the support of the bill. We are aware that majority of the governors are against it. Majority of the Senate, National Assembly are also against it because it has a lot of problems. The bill, if passed, most likely may create more problems than it is intended to solve. So my perspective on it is that actually the bill, like advice given, the president's advice needs to be withdrawn and revisited, because the way it is actually, it will create problem in the country, particularly financial. The way the bill is designed now, mostly it may favor only one state in the whole of Nigeria, not even a region. Majority of states are going to, suffer. So that's my view. Actually, the bill is, for now, is negative. Well, the bill will affect revenue generation in Kano State in two ways. Number one, it is effect on federal allocation Kano is receiving. In fact, in one of the bills, I think revenue administration, the bill has proposed for a change in VAT sharing formula. Presently, whatever is generated in form of VAT, 15% goes to federal government, 35% to local governments, and 50% to state governments. However, the new bill has proposed that this rate will still be maintained, but first of all, 60% has to be taken out, which will now be shared among based on derivation. Okay, so the effect is that what will actually end up be going to majority of the states now, most likely it is going to be very, very much lower, because by the time you blocked 60% of the revenue and share it among few states, which we call derivative states of VAT, it will be against the remaining states, almost plus the FCT. Now, the bone of contention is defining what derivation is. How do you determine VAT is derived? Now, derivation mostly in Nigeria, when you talk of VAT and other revenue, they said is based on where the head office of companies are located. A majority of companies in Nigeria, they have their head offices either in Lagos, in the Rivers states, or in the FCT. So technically, it means 60% of VAT will be shared by these three states. And they will still come back, suck around, and take share in the 15-35-50. Okay? So as a result, the revenue of Lagos State, Rivers, and FCT will go very high, because they will share 60% of the VAT. And then the revenue of the remaining states, okay, will definitely go down. My state inclusive. So if you take federal allocation, it will negatively affect Kano State, because our proportion of revenue we receive from VAT will definitely go down. And this is because definition of derivative, like I said, how do you define some revenue is derived? Now, in most cases, like I said, it uses location of head offices. All right. So only if an acceptable formula, an acceptable definition of derivation can be, defined. Okay, yeah, wherever the consumption takes place. where the consumption actually take place, not where the head office is located. Now, if there can be, a foolproof system that can actually determine consumption and allocate that to that state, okay, to that very location, then the derivative, element can be accepted. But we cannot accept a situation where we say Nigeria has an estimated population of 220 million people, and then if you take the population of Lagos, you take the population of Rivers, you take the population of the probably around 20-30 million, okay? Then 190 million will do consumption spread all over the country, and then by virtue of locating head offices in either of these places, all the VAT will go there. So this is one problem. The government should have developed and convinced Nigerians of its ability to trace consumption to actual locations. If I make a phone call here and I call someone in Kaduna or in Lagos, I'm calling from Kano. Let there be proof that MTN, Airtel, or whatever company can trace my call and bat to Kano. Okay? Not me making call, and then my bat, even if it's 2 naira, taken to Lagos because MTN headquarters is in Lagos or in Rivers. Okay? So whatever consumption we do, it should be traced to actual location. And the government went ahead to propose this bill without taking care of this problem. And that's why we are not in support of it. And secondly also, most businesses are in the informal sector. Like if you come to Kano, majority of our business transactions, our consumption are in what? The businesses are in the informal sector. And this informal sector, they are not batch agents. So there will be huge turnover which is not captured. Okay? Consequently, contribution of Kano State alongside many other northern Nigeria states and even southern states are not captured because any transaction you do in the informal sector is not captured under VAT. Change in the IGR, most considerable segments or part of the tax reform bill comes with increase in taxation. All right, and if you increase taxation, in most cases it negatively affects the economy because higher taxes reduces consumption power, and therefore even the proportion of internally generated revenue directly collected by states, not even from federal allocation, will likely be affected. All right, so this is therefore in summary the reform, from whichever perspective we take it, will reduce the revenue of Kano State. One, if we take that perspective, that is federal allocation, the ill preparation will definitely put Kano at disadvantage. Two, the proposal the bill has for increasing taxes, for example, VAT, currently I think that is at 7.5%. So from 2025, the tax reform bill proposed, it will increase to 10%. Then from 2026 to 2029, it will be 12.5%. After 2029, from 2030 off, it will be 15%. So you see, this regular increment will actually lead to higher cost of production. Yeah, the effect is just like what I said. It's possibility of increasing cost of production. Well, my advice to Nigerians is that they should come together and fight this tax reform bill, because the bill will create more problem than actually what is intended, that is to solve them. And simply because there doesn't seem to have been stakeholder consultations. Well, my advice is Bola Tinubu needs to withdraw this bill and look at it critically. You should not take it personal.
Business community leaders in Kano's business sector expressed reservations about the bill, like Elijah Sabiu Bako, chairman of the Kano State business community, criticized the timing of the reforms, given the nation's struggles with inflation.
Kano State, we are united, we put ourselves together, we are working together, and alhamdulillah, we are talking on behalf of Kano citizens. They are just managing and determined to do whatever they can succeed. But Like Moscow is just expanding all over, and Mahmuda, it is maybe number one in Nigeria, not in Kano for bags, and the other are following. But definitely a lot of factories are closing, a lot of people are suffering, a lot of industries are not working. Because why? Because of electricity is not there. The money has been increased beyond thinking of anybody. You cannot afford to continue with the charges and survive. So it is a very serious issue, but this reform, it will affect a lot of businesses in Nigeria. A lot of businesses will be affected. Why? As of now, the power of people to buy goods are not there. Everything is so expensive, and now we are suffering with bank charges, we are suffering with electricity bills, we are suffering from subsidy of oil subsidy. Everything has gone up. As of now, we say that we want to increase our tax. I think it will look like a long time. There's a need for the federal government to think again, see what the right thing to do. It is not the right time now to come with this reform. In our own thinking as administrative people in Kano, it's not the right time. There's a need for the government to need time for us to reach. We are talking like what is happening in developed countries. They are not there. We have a lot to reach. So there's a need for maybe the government to think over it. A lot of incentive to support the business people. We are not getting any support as of now, and instead of supporting business because we are accommodating a lot of society, a lot of people. Like one of us has about 3,000 persons working under him. Like this super, he has maybe about 2,000. But everybody is not being supported. There's no any support coming to any of us. So we need the government to look back. My advice to the federal government is for the federal government to look into the people, the suffering. I want him to look into Nigeria, the nation. Whatever going to happen about the allocation, it has to be shared equitably.
Junaidu Muhammad Zakari, chairman of Single Market, noted the adverse effects of rising taxation on purchasing power and production, citing instances of businesses relocating or shutting down.
Kano business community, one of the business community that contribute a lot to the nation, it empowers a lot of people, and it is also a source of income to the state government and the federal government as well. Actually, to our own concern, it is not a good news because most of the business people in Kano and the environs have not yet recovered from so many inflations happened maybe in the last 1 year or more. A lot of inflations in terms of commodities, a lot of inflations in terms of electricity, so and so on. So actually, most of the business people are not recovered, and some have been crippled. So, bringing this issue of tax reform, so I think it's not the right time because it will worsen the scenario.
Alhaji Ahmed Sufi, a business leader, called for a focus on social welfare, arguing that the reforms could worsen economic challenges.
It's not the right time because there is so much inflation in the country, and we have seen how goods have skyrocketed for over 50%, or some with even 100%, and the purchasing power of people has drastically reduced. The affordability, people cannot afford the same way they were affording by last year. This has drastically affected our market, our sales, and our sales is going down because generally people cannot afford. So anything, when you are adding anything to this, I think it is going down to the common man, because definitely goods will still go up again when you are adding any tax to this product. It will still go down to the common man, because whatever tax I paid, I have to increase it on the product I'm selling, and definitely it is going to affect the common man, because definitely these prices will still go up again, and we have all seen because of how exchange rate has gone up. This has massively bring products to have to go up, and we have seen decline in our sales.
Other implications for society. The proposed tax reforms have sparked concerns about their rippling effects on Nigeria's social and economic structures. His Royal Majesty Igwe Dr. J.P. Ikechukwu Oliver Akudo, Eze Dioramma, Eze Orazurunye V, and Eze Ndigbo of Kano State appealed to the federal government on taxation to consider the plight of ordinary Nigerians struggling under the weight of economic hardship. They pointed out that the skyrocketing prices of goods and services have left many citizens unable to meet their basic needs. The king urged the federal government to implement policies that alleviate the burden of taxation and improve living conditions for all Nigerians.
Then the government is trying their own, but I'm begging them to try more so that everybody will be happy.
Professor Abdul Salam Kani, an economist at Saladatu Rimi University, warned that higher taxes could stifle economic growth and widen regional inequalities.
My own understanding centered around having a critical analysis of the merits and demerits of the bill. If you look at it, one need to understand there are certain areas of the bill that are absolutely beneficial to Nigerian economy and to Nigerians as well. Number one, if you look at the bill, one, it has shifted the entire or substantial burden of the tax from what you call necessities to the luxuries. This should be appreciated by all Nigerians. And what I'm trying to say, the major attention of the tax is going to be on the luxury commodities that are not necessary. That is to say, those who are high-level income individuals in Nigeria will be taxed more, and those who are less earning income Nigerians will be taxed less. This is one of the major advantages of the bill. And secondly, if you look at it, the bill has come with a transformation. If you look at Nigeria as a nation, we are still lacking electronic generation, remittance of taxes and whatever in Nigeria, which is providing an avenue for stealing public money and whatever. So what I'm trying to say, the bill has made an attempt to ensure that all leakages as far as tax system in Nigeria is absolute bone of contention, or is the issue of value added tax. And if you look at it initially, each state in Nigeria is expected to return 20% of whatever VAT is generated or remitted in your state. If you look at it in the southern part of Nigeria, that is where production is taking place. That is where head offices or branches of the offices of the producers are sited. But in the northern part of Nigeria, that is where consumption sale is taking place. And I want us to understand the simple economics knowledge that without consumption, there will be no production. And if you look at it, VAT in Nigeria is collected where commodities or goods or services are produced, or where the offices of the service providers are sited, which are significantly in the southern part of Nigeria. But when you look at the consumption and the sale, is substantially in the northern part of Nigeria, because that is where the population is. That is where you have the market. That is where you have the consumption. So my own simple prescription, if they are still insisting that 60% is to be returned in a state where VAT is remitted, there is need for the National Assembly to make one simple change, which is VAT should be collected in a place where consumption took place, or in a place where sale of the commodities took place in Nigeria.
Professor Mohammed Babangida of the Ulama Forum urged the federal government to heed public concerns and withdraw the bill.
These bills, in their intent, they are meant to streamline the various laws and acts related to taxation. There are so many of them. There are conflicting laws, there are conflicting acts, provisions, and so streamlining them and bringing them under one comprehensive act would be advantageous. But our bone of contention is in 3 or 4 areas. One is the content and the ambiguity in particularly two of the bills, the Nigeria Tax Act and the Nigeria Tax Administration, bill now, before it becomes an act, bill, and the Nigeria Tax Administration Bill. Now, from the practice as it is now, when VAT is being collected, it is shared in this formula. 15% goes to the federal government, 50% goes to the states and the FCT, and 35% goes to the local governments, with the provision that 20% of what is allocated to the states, FCT, and also to the local governments, 20% of it would go for derivation. It will be allocated in derivation. Fund which was established as a result of struggle by ASU, and 3% of VAT collected on tertiary education goes to TED Fund. 1% collected from companies, agencies, and so on. Banks, financial institutions, 1% goes to NITDA, and 0.25% goes to NASENI. And these agencies are making very positive impact on education. Now, the new provision makes it that by 2025, 2026, there will be initially an increase from the development levy. There will be an increase of the share of TED Fund to 50%, and 20% would go to NITDA, 5% would go to NASENI, and the rest would go to student loan. By 2027, TED Fund would get 66.7% of that. NASENI would get 0%, no allocation. NITDA would get 0%, no allocation, and the rest would go to student loan. By 2030, TED Fund would get 0 allocation itself. No allocation for TED Fund, no allocation for NITDA, no allocation for NASENI, 100% allocation for student levy. Now the question here is that we are virtually killing, muzzling these agencies. That means by 2030, TED Fund particularly, that's an area of concern for me because I'm an academic, TED Fund would virtually be out of place. If it is taken back to as an agency under the government and a provision made for it in the budget of Federal Ministry of Education to get some chicken feed, or it dies a natural death. And it means that education actually in Nigeria would suffer. Or the import of that is that universities, tertiary institutions, polytechnics, colleges of education would have to find means of sustaining themselves. Where TED Fund used to be a place where they run to in order to support many of their programs, now they would have to source for funding, and the natural way to do that would be to increase fees, to charge tuition fees on students and parents. They'll tell you that, okay, and that's why we have the 100% student loan. Students would now go and borrow, and you are making the next generation of our students to be borrowers, to be indebted virtually forever. Because if the increase is so much, a student who takes these loans will take some 10 years trying to settle the government for this loan and will become chronic debtors, just as our nation itself is becoming a chronic debtor. So Nigeria would be indebted to IMF, World Bank, Paris Club, and all the others. And the students and parents, they will be working virtually as slaves. It means our students, our sons, our daughters would be working wherever they are working. They will take a chunk of their earnings to repay back the federal government for these loans that they had been given. We feel that this doesn't portend well for the future generation. And if what I have seen just yesterday in one of our platforms of ASU is a correct news. It shows that TED Fund, as from now even, is not going to take responsibility for sponsoring students, foreign students who are going for their further studies outside Nigeria. Let them limit, because they say that they don't have enough funding for that. Now, so there will be no more foreign scholarship for those who are benefiting from TED Fund. And this shows that this is the beginning of packing up the organization, the agency itself. So these are centrally some of the few things that we identified, and we feel that it needs to be really looked into carefully. Therefore, we call upon the National Assembly to throw these bills to the general public. President Bola Tinubu should listen to all the different components of Nigeria with regards to these bills. The members of the National Assembly should be allowed to look into this, to discuss it extensively, and to consult their electorate. Let the bills be thrown to the public so that we hear views from various segments of Nigeria, and whatever the majority of Nigerians adopt should be the one that President Bola Tinubu should actually take.
The documentary underscores the apprehensions of northern Nigerians regarding the proposed tax reform bill. While fiscal reforms are essential for national development, policymakers must ensure fairness and equity across regions. It is imperative, therefore, for President Tinubu's administration to address the concerns raised and implement measures that would prioritize the welfare of all citizens.